everybody, and welcome back to God, Coffee, and Resilience with your host. I'm Reese, and today we have a very important guest with us. Her name is Alysia. Welcome to the fold.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Glad to
I'm
be here.
excited. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I always do this at the beginning, but better late than never. During the recording, there is a little lag in us talking. So, if you're saying something, unless I'm trying to get your attention, just keep going.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Well, I always ask this first question because the name of the show is God, Coffee, and Resilience. And I always ask about coffee or caffeine, or what is your
Caffeine.
favorite caffeinated beverage?
I mean, I like coffee, coffee. So, if you have time, I have a funny story about coffee because I was actually trying to give it up for a long time.
Yeah.
And I and really what I wanted to give up was the creamer in my coffee, but like who
Mhm.
likes black coffee, right?
Yeah.
So it for me it was like I have to give up coffee.
Right.
And so one day I was talking to the life coach that I was in the program with, and he said, "How's giving up coffee going?" As I was sipping a cup of coffee. And I said, "Ugh, I gave up on giving up coffee." And I don't know if you've ever said I've given up trying to give up something, but it just felt like a dagger in my heart, like, oh, that did not feel good at all to say that. And
Right.
so I took a sip of the coffee that I had, and it just tasted so sweet in that moment. I was like, okay, let me add some more coffee
Mhm.
to it. And so I was walking to the kitchen, and I was like, had this, if you give a mouse a cookie moment, right? Where if you give a
Yeah.
mouse a cookie, he's going to want some milk. And if I put some more coffee in this, I'm going to want more cream. And
Yes.
so, and then this thought just popped into my head. I was so mad at my dad because he was refusing to give up creamer in his coffee. And here I was essentially doing the same thing. And so I poured that cup down the drain, and then there was no more coffee for the day. So the next
Uh-huh.
morning, which was his birthday, I love that fact that I gave up drinking. I stopped drinking cream in
Mhm.
my coffee on my dad's birthday. I took a sip, and it was like, this is good. Black coffee didn't taste bitter anymore. It didn't need the sweet. And so it's been about 3 years since I've had creamer in my coffee, and I love black coffee now. So that's my caffeine of choice.
Uh-huh.
I do drink tea as well. It's like 2 cups of coffee is my max, and then I switch to tea in the afternoon.
Wow. Well, can we just commend you for giving
Sure.
up creamer, because creamer is like the end all be all, like kryptonite.
Hmm.
Cream is everything. So I love hazelnut creamer. I
Yes.
don't think I like any other types of creamer, just hazelnut. And I've started to go to the fat-free one. And then hopefully I'll keep on inching down because I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, you give me hope. Maybe I'll be able to do it. I'm
Yeah,
just
and
not there
I was talking about my to my in-laws about this, that it's about leverage, right? So
right.
the in order to change anything, the pain of staying the same has to be worse
Yes.
than the pain of change. And it I don't know why I was watching Sing, that Disney, I think it's a Disney movie, Sing, with the all
Yes.
the animals who were, doing that concert. And there's this mom on there. I work with a lot of moms. So there's this
Uh-huh.
mom on there, and she's a pig, and she has like 18 piglets, right? And a
Yes.
husband who goes to work and comes home and has completely stopped paying attention to her, right? And
Right.
she wants to be in this concert, and
Yeah.
she does all these things where she, rigs up the house to wake up the kids and get them off and feed them and get them off to school and all of this so she can free up some of her time. because she wants so much to be in this concert. And I was like, I realize it's a cartoon.
Yes.
But it's the lesson is still there. If we want to do something, we're going to find a way.
Hmm.
And if we don't, we're going to find an
Yes.
excuse. And so that's where the
Hmm.
leverage comes in, right? So this was just
Right.
popped in my head like 2 days ago, and I was talking to my in-laws about it. And so, it's hard to give up stuff like creamer in your coffee or smoking or these things that we do in
Right.
order to numb something, escape something, avoid something,
Right.
so I was avoiding the flavor of black coffee, and there's a million ways to give up coffee or a million ways
Yeah.
to give up the creamer, and you just have to find the thing that works for you.
Yes. I mean, you just gave me us a whole word, and this is the very beginning of the show. But I mean, I couldn't log off right now. Like I got my word. You could apply that to so many things in life, like
Mhm,
weight loss and
mhm,
eating right, or me trying to drink a gallon of water a day. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But
yeah,
it was very important what you said. The want to change has to be greater than staying the same. And
yeah.
I agree 100%.
And I know
Yeah.
a lot of life coaches will say, like, "What's your why?" Or you hear that term, "What's your why?" And
Yes.
honestly, I never really got it where, like, I understood it until very recently,
Mhm.
where, my dad is, given a prognosis of 6 months to a year to live, and, my boyfriend hit a number on the scale that he wasn't excited about, and so he started watching YouTube videos about how to lose this belly fat, and I was watching them, and I went down this YouTube rabbit trail, and I found landed on a video that was talking about eating for heart health and brain health, which are two things that are in my genetics.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, okay, well, I think I have a plan. Like I like the foods that they're talking about. I
Right.
can give up the foods that are also really bad for you. And it's like it hit that leverage, and the why is like I want to live as long as
Right.
possible and help as many people as possible and be here for my son as long as possible
Right.
without having these physical ailments, right? Like
Right.
I don't want to have a heart attack at 75. I don't want to have Alzheimer's. My grandma lived with that for 15 years. It's an awful disease, and
It
I don't
is.
want it at all. Like, please no. And so if I can do something to avoid it, I'm going to do that. So,
Yes, I agree 100%. Alzheimer's took my grandpa, and now it's taken my grandmother. My grandmother's still alive. My grandpa dad died in 2015. And so it's such a horrible disease just to see such a strong person, strong personality just fade into being lost. And there's like nothing, you just feel so hopeless. But we have something in common because we're strong, we're overcoming, we're there for them and praying for them as much as possible. But I think there's something to say for you saying you're trying, your genetics, you know what runs in your family, and you're trying to prevent it as best you can. Like I think this year in May, I started working out every morning at 5:30, and I would roll myself out of bed. And every time when I thought I'm going to go back to bed, this isn't it, it's too early, and it's
mhm,
a Monday, I would
mhm,
just say, do you want to end up with diabetes? Do you want to end up with heart problems like everybody else in your family? I'm like, absolutely not. So I go to the gym,
right.
and that's all I need.
There you
So
go.
I've been trying to stay consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Yes.
similar. Like I've been on this weight loss journey. Just like the number on the scale actually matters for me right now because I'm
Uh-huh.
working on becoming a single or a surrogate mom, and so you have to be a certain weight to do surrogacy. And right now, I have about 13 pounds left to go, and so but I'm also making choices that are like, well, weight is great, but being healthy is better. So I'm
Yes.
like, how can I do both as quickly as possible? Yeah.
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 Well,
So yeah,
I am excited for you.
Mhm.
I
Thank
have
you.
never met anyone that does surrogacy, or I've never met a surrogate mother, or a surrogate mother to be. And
Mhm.
so kind of, I know I'm kind of like going way, but I'm just going to let us flow. Um
Let
what
go and
is the
let God,
process
right?
like? Yes, like what is the process like for or how did you get involved, or is the person you're doing the surrogacy for someone you know, or
So I actually, it's funny because I wanted to be a surrogate before I even knew that that there was a word. So I was 16 years old. I did not want children. I try not to
uh-huh.
say that when my son's around because it hurts his heart. I changed my mind, obviously. But at 16 years old, I was like, I am not having kids. And my friend was like, oh, I really want to be a mom, but I don't want to go through labor. And I was like, huh, well, I really want to experience pregnancy. I just don't want the baby at the end, you know? And so I was like, I'll have a baby for you. How about that? And so I'm 16 years old volunteering to do surrogacy.
Right.
So fast forward 10 years later, I met a surrogate for the first time, learned what it's called, and I picked her brain for an hour. I was like, tell me everything. And I was so excited. I went home to my husband at the time. I said, I want to do surrogacy. He goes, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, I put it out of my mind, and I had my son. I was 29 years old when I had my son, and
Uh-huh.
about a year later, we split. His dad and I split up, and
Mhm.
so, and that's actually kind of part of my story. But you know, the I was in this pit of despair, as I like to call it. Here
Mhm.
we go. We could kill two birds with one stone. Okay, so I'm
Yes.
in this pit of despair, and I was self-employed, and worked in a direct sales business, and I had also gone through a divorce before, and at that time, I quit the business. I went back to work full time, and I didn't want to do that with a 14-month-old. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with him as much as I possibly can. And so
Mhm.
I was looking for part-time jobs as something to supplement my income while I was in the pit of despair and didn't really want to do the things that I needed to do to make income. And so I ran across this ad for surrogacy, and I was like, oh, yes, yes, please. And so I filled out the application. I met them in June. I was matched in July. I started the meds in August, and I was
Mhm.
pregnant by September. And, you know, I don't really want to set up the expectation that that's how it's going to go, because every journey I've had has been different. I've
Mhm.
had 3 babies for other people, um, but it really was that first time to supplement my income. And then all the
Mhm.
other times, you know, the money was nice, but it was like, I just like being pregnant, and I like helping a person's family grow, and the gift, like, of it's essentially creating a mother, because someone
Right.
who really, really wants to have a baby, and they just can't. And for whatever reason, there's been never found the right man. There's been they just
Yeah.
couldn't conceive on their own. There's been She had kids with a first husband, married a younger man, froze her eggs. They just and you know he wasn't ready at that point to have kids, and so she froze her eggs, and then I carried their baby, and I'm like, oh, you're 50, honey, and you're starting over. Okay.
Start over. Wow. Okay.
Reset button.
That is
Okay.
so Yes, that's so interesting. That is so interesting. You said you had 3 kiddos for other
Mm,
people, but I also think it's a big, big blessing. Like
mhm.
that's something that I feel like you have to be called to do. Like most people don't wake up one day and say, "Hey, I want to be a surrogate." But from a young age, you kind of was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'll do you this favor.
Mm,
Yeah, I'll help you out." But I
mhm.
also think it's huge to the families. Like you said, they can't have children, or some medical reason or something or
Right.
another. And you bless them with the child, and you're like Have any of them ever said you're now part of our family? Or
The
is it like they cut it afterwards or
so the very last one, I'm Aunt Alicia for them and or for the baby.
Mhm.
He turned 3 in October.
Oh,
He's just the cutest baby. He's from the Philippines and he's just so adorable. The first
yes.
family was an odd experience. It was they kind of showed up, took the baby and ran, and I never saw the baby again. I don't know what her name is. I didn't get to really say goodbye. Again, not a
Mhm.
typical situation. The second
Right.
time I had like a year of updates from the mom, which was what the
Oh,
contract said is that I get updates for a year, and then it was just like cut off. And I was like, oh, I mean, I would have liked like an email of like, okay, here's your 1 year. Thank you so much. We're done now. But
yes.
okay, well, that's fine. So this last time, so now I just tell surrogate families like, I'm totally fine with whatever you want. What I
Mhm.
want is an agreement that we come to together of what happens postpartum. And
Yes.
if you change your mind, that's fine. Just let me know. So
Mhm.
the new mom that I'm working with, she's actually local, like 3 hours north of me. The other
Uh-huh.
families have all been international families, but the this new mom, she's 3 hours north of me, and she's like, I love connection and communication, and I'm as open to you being in our lives as you are, and I'm like, that's cool. So.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Well, I know that I want to give you enough time because I know I can talk about surrogacy and I love OBGYN. That was one of my favorite rotations. I hope to still specialize in that before I retire. But
Mhm.
let me get back on track. You said you were in the depths of despair after you had your kiddo at
Mhm.
29 and you guys were kind of going through a divorce or was it like a separation?
So we were going through a divorce. It was pretty much he was done with the relationship, and I wasn't
Mhm.
yet at that point.
Right.
Um, I honestly I had to because I my like okay. I knew I if I was going to be a mom, that was fine, but it wasn't that I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a family, and so my definition
Yes.
of family was very specific: mom, dad, baby.
Mhm.
And so I had to kind of go through this process of redefining what family was. And I actually, not in a mean way, but I killed off my husband because
Mhm.
the man that I was in love with was gone. And so
Mhm.
it felt like a death. And yes, his body is still in existence, and they're still talking back and forth and sharing of our child, but essentially the man
Right.
that I was in love with is was gone. And
Right.
that was one of the ways that I had to reconcile this divorce. It was easier, not that divorce is ever easy, but it was easier the first
Mhm.
time because it was sort of my decision. Like I was ready to leave. We didn't have any kids together. Um,
Right.
he went to his coast and I went back to my coast, and like
Yeah.
still have 3,000 miles in between us. He and I have a friendship now, but it was like it wasn't as hard. It was hard, but it wasn't as hard.
Right.
And but this time there's a
Mhm.
kid, and he's the same age I was when my parents got divorced, and I never wanted that for him, and just and going through all of these emotions that I was going through while I basically everything that I had been proud of was stripped away. So I was a leader in the top 2% of this direct sales company. I had earned a free car with them. I was a wife, and I was a military wife, and I was a mom, and like so I had all of these things, and one by one they started going away, and then obviously I'm still a mom, but I just felt like this horrible mom
Mhm.
because he started exhibiting these behaviors that I was like, what is wrong with this kid? I don't understand.
Mm.
Luckily, I had support, and that's one of the reasons that I call myself the mom support coach. I support moms with the things that they're going through, um,
Yes.
because you know my sister knew what was kind of going on, and she's like, I think that
Yeah.
you need to talk to his doctor and get him into early intervention for autism, because the early intervention is going to be key if he's on the spectrum. And
Yeah.
she was going through school for this, and I trusted her implicitly. I went through the process. He was diagnosed at 3 years old, but
Okay.
it was like borderline when he got the
Uh-huh.
diagnosis because of all that intervention, early intervention. So highly recommend early intervention if you have any questions. If your child is
Yes.
on the spectrum, go to your doctor, ask for an earlier intervention program, and then, unless it's a super specialized place, pull them out
Uh-huh.
around 4 or 5 years old, because at that point they don't always know what to do beyond that. But
Yeah.
autism
And
soapbox.
yes, no, like that's so good because I mean, I'm new to Texas. I haven't looked up all the places there is to look up for everything. And so
Mhm.
it's different because before here I was in Virginia and I was doing psychiatry. So after being there for 2 years, I kind of knew where to refer people, what clinic is great for that, who has great this, great that. And
Mhm.
now I'm in Texas, and Texas is so huge. Like you can drive 15 minutes one way and be in another city, and drive up
Right.
15, 30 minutes the other direction and you're in another city. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a lot. But I see kiddos every day. But the other, I guess, the weird part about it to me is when they're very young, either they have the speech delay or it's other little signs that they're autistic, and the parents didn't even think twice about it, and now they come to me and they're like 12, 13, 14, and I'm like, have we ever had a psychological completed? And so
Mhm.
I think it's good that you said that, because autism is more prevalent than what you think. Like it's
Yeah.
here. And most parents don't know what to do or what that means
Right.
or what it looks like. So I'm
And
happy you said that.
I think the stigma is starting to be lifted, I'm hoping, about, the labels. And
Oh,
if you take
yes.
a label and just understand that the label is there to guide you. It's not there to inhibit you. So if you don't
Right.
teach your kids, like, oh, you have ADHD, so you're going to struggle, as long as you're not saying that kind of thing, like, they don't even really know. Right? Like, my son,
Right.
he asked me the other day, what's autism? I'm like, I couldn't even tell you what it is. Like, I can't. And he doesn't know, like, we've never had a sit down conversation that he's on the spectrum. If
Right.
he ever, like, really directly asks me, hey, am I on the spectrum, I'm not going to lie to him. um, but
Yeah.
he doesn't even have, like, the individual educational uh,
Plan.
program, the IEP. I
Mm-hmm.
know it's IEP, but I wasn't sure what the P stood for. He doesn't even have an IEP.
Right.
It's never been a problem. He knows how to behave in class. And this most recent teacher was like, you could send him to school with something to keep his hands busy as long as it's quiet, because he's a fidgeter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, he was so excited that he got to bring a toy to school. And so
Yes.
he bought like 3 or 4 of them with his allowance money. I'm like, okay, you're going a little overboard on this, but as long as it's quiet and as long as you're listening, as long as your grades keep up, like, go nuts.
Yes. And I think that's really important that you brought that up too, because most parents, all they hear is the label, and all they think
Mhm.
immediately is whatever their perspective is of the diagnosis, not looking at, okay, but your child was behaving like this before they even had a label, so to speak, or a diagnosis put on them. So
Mhm.
all that is just a way for us to know why we're seeing this, what's happening, and how we can help, versus not like holding your child back from being
Right.
successful. It's like plenty of people on the spectrum graduate, they go into IT, they build things, architecture, like they do amazing things. And I was like, it's not going to hold them back. It's not something that's going to get in the way. It's something that's actually unique and great, but they don't
Yeah.
see it that way because of the stigma. So I hope too that maybe one day the stigma will be gone, not just for autism, but for all of it, because I deal
Yeah.
with it every day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, what happened like as your child got was as you were raising your child, you went through the divorce. What were some of the things that you kind of leaned on? I know you mentioned you had a support system,
Hmm.
but what were like the really big things that when you look back and you on that time in your life, you just say, God, if that wasn't there, I don't know how I would have made it.
I'm just going to repeat support because when I left my husband, he I moved in with my parents, my dad and my stepmom, and my dad said when I moved in, we're not built-in babysitters. Your stepmom and I both have jobs, like we're not here to
Hmm.
babysit. And because of the headspace that I was in, I heard, "Don't ever ask for help. Don't ever ask us to
Hmm.
babysit." That's what I heard.
Right.
um, which maybe he could have said it differently. Maybe I could have heard it differently, but that's what I
Right.
heard. And so for a long time, I felt alone. I felt like that to me, that's what being a single mom was. And like that actually produces some emotion. Like I'm kind of tearing up. Like I just felt alone. And
Right.
there was a moment where my son was doing something. I like it all blends together. I was telling him
Yes.
one time when he was 3 that he got in trouble, and I said, I either locked you in a closet or I locked myself in the closet. I don't even remember. I know there was a closet, but I just was like, I got to get away from you. That only happened once. Don't call CPS on me.
No, 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 no. I will not.
That's I don't think I've ever even talked about that before. There was just this one time, and it wasn't like for hours or anything. It was maybe 5 minutes, but
Yeah.
um, it I just like it all blends together. I don't remember, but
Mhm.
something happened, and I was on the phone with my friend, and I said I don't want to be a mom anymore. I can't do this, and we I don't remember what she said, but we hung up and she was sympathetic. Like it wasn't just like, okay, cool, that's nice, bye. Like, but she was, but she called me back and she said, if you're serious, I have a friend that will take him. And that was like this lightning bolt, like moment of, whoa, I don't think that that's actually the problem. I think I just need a break.
Yeah.
And so, I called his grandma, his dad's mom, and I said, would you like a visit? Would you like to see him? Would you like to meet me
Yeah.
halfway? Because they live in Oregon. I'm middle California. And so I was like, do you want to meet halfway? And so I got a week break. And I started to realize that when I would get to those moments where everything he would do was frustrating to me, I just needed a break.
Yeah.
Because I worked from home, he was at home, and
Mhm.
I still didn't really have that. I hadn't identified that support yet, right?
Right.
So because of my business, I had dropped back down to like the top 10% of the company, um, and I was wanting to get back to the top 2%, and so I got on an email list for a life coach. Um, and I remember this email very specifically that at the beginning of the email, or the what is it called? The subject of the email said,
Yeah.
this year, it was January 1st, 2017, and it said, this year I wish you more pain. And it was PAIN, period, 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 right? So it was spelled out pain. And so it was an acronym.
Uh-huh.
And that email made me mad, or that subject made me mad.
Yeah.
And then I read it and I understood that the pain basically was like you grow through the pain, right?
Mhm.
So he was doing this program, an online program called Success and Fulfillment inside the business that I was in. And I was like, oh, I want success. Fulfillment would be
Yes.
nice, whatever, but like I want success.
Right.
And so I went through this program. I ended up hiring a one-on-one coach. And um, I still haven't gotten back into that top 2% of the company, but it wasn't, even though that was the goal, I pivoted because I fell in love with coaching. But the
Yes.
I remember after maybe 6 months of coaching that I went to this event at my with my direct sales company, and I was driving home and I got overwhelmed with
Mhm.
emotion of and I sent three people, my coach, my upline, who was my best friend, and my roommate, who was my other best friend. I sent those three women a text thanking them for how supported I felt over the last year. And I think it was just a year's time where I went from this pit of despair to realizing how much support that I had in my life. It might have been 2 years. But
Yeah.
it was, and it wasn't that the support wasn't always there. I just
Mhm.
didn't see it. I just
Mm.
my blinders were up to all the things that I had to be thankful for and grateful for. The
Mhm.
blinders were just up. So,
Yeah. Gosh, that's really good, really good. Your support was always there, but because it didn't look the way you thought it was going to look or present the way you thought it
mhm,
was gonna look, you didn't see them.
yeah.
That's awesome.
hmm
Well, I know that you're still doing coaching now, right?
Yes. Yep.
What
I'm the
is
mom
the
support coach.
what is the most common thing that new moms kinda complain about, or what's the most frequent thing that you see with new moms?
you know, I've identified five things
Uh-huh.
that moms struggle with that really steal the peace out of their life. And peace is an acronym. So there's people, emotions, the almighty dollar, chaos,
Yes.
and exhaustion. And so people, our relationships, our spouse, our in-laws, our kids, um, the emotions, guilt is a really big emotion. That's
Mhm.
really kind of what propelled me into the coaching arena, because I had this mom guilt that I was carrying around.
Right.
And when I let go of it, it was like 50 pounds of emotion just taken off my shoulders.
Right.
The almighty dollar, like money struggles are very common. Um, Chaos is just the overwhelm of the things that we've agreed to do and not asking for help and all those
Right.
all those things that we women do, like we put on our superhero and our S on our chest and put on the cape and let I can do it all, and it's like, please don't.
Yeah.
Not if you want to be happy. And
Yeah.
exhaustion is self-care. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can think of somebody I know. I had a friend who had a baby girl this year, and
Mm-hmm.
the in-laws was being something terrible, and the guy who she had the child with was acting very strange, and so she just
Mm-hmm.
felt like she had no support. And every
Mm-hmm.
time she was home, the baby's crying. She's just like, I don't even like. She was like, I'm still trying to understand that this is my child. And I mean, we had to work with her on a lot of things on connecting the dots. And she's like, I just can't believe I'm this old with a child and I have
Mm-hmm.
no help. But over
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks, she has, kept me in a loop and been talking to me, and she's getting more and more help. But in the beginning, it was rough. It was very rough. That was her first child. So
Yeah.
I can totally understand where the support is needed, but for other people who, parents might have passed, or, they don't have best friends or good friends, or it was something that happened to them as to why they ended up pregnant and so forth. Where can people like find and connect with you, like if they ever wanted to be coached by you? Because I don't
Yeah.
know a lot of coaches that deal with new moms. I know coach for weight loss, I know coach for empowerment, a coach for public speaking, coach for entrepreneurs, but you are the first, and I think that makes you very unique. And so I want you to share, where can people find you, connect with you?
Yeah, coaching moms specifically. Like,
Mhm.
yes, I can coach entrepreneur moms and just regular moms, stay-at-home moms, and work out of the home moms. Like,
Right.
it's I don't see that out there quite a lot. And so I've actually
Mhm.
resisted like marketing as a entrepreneurial mom coach
Yes.
specifically. Like, I'm like, I just love moms. Like, we have the best job in the world, and a lot of times we don't enjoy it. And
Right.
so, like, let's enjoy this most amazing job in the world, is raising the next generation. So I am the mom support coach. So I'm at mom support coach on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I have a website, AlysiaLyons.com, ALYSIALYONS, because it's a little bit different, just like me.
I love it.
But
I
I
love
think
it.
you kind of hit the nail on the head with there. I think you said the word isolation, and if you didn't, that's what I heard, because new moms feel very isolated, especially inside COVID. Like, COVID
Yeah.
was rough for a lot of people, but moms
Mhm.
especially, and that support system that we used to have before COVID was taken away. Like, I had a system. He goes up to his dad's house on, you know, every holiday at this point, since he's in school, but before that it was every 3 months. And I had this, I had my mother-in-law takes him overnight for this amount of time, and my mom might take him, and he might go over to my brother's house to play with his cousins. And like, I had all of this support, and then we're not supposed to leave our house, and I'm like, oh, I'm scared. And I told him that. I wanted to be honest with him. I said, I'm scared because moms need breaks from their kids, and
Right.
kids need breaks from their moms. Like, no
Mhm.
joke. It's a both way street. And I think the next day he said, "Mom, I need a break from you." And I'm like, "All right." And I never needed that break. And I was so proud of myself that I had gotten to this point where I was like, I don't need the break. And when I didn't need like a week-long break. I needed a break from the
Right.
house. Like,
Right.
every 3 days I was like, I'm gonna go up to Starbucks and get myself a drink, because I just need to drive somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just need to be out of these four walls for a minute. And so I gave
Yes.
myself that, and now I go for walks, because Starbucks isn't, the healthiest thing, and isn't conducive to weight loss. So,
Right.
I'm going for my walks to get out of the house, and we have a dog. I'm sure you heard him barking in the back in the beginning, but I'll go for a short distance with him, and then I'll come back and
Mhm.
I'll tie him up, and then I go by myself, because there's something so powerful about just being alone with my thoughts and not having to work or to worry about and take care of anything else but me.
Mhm. It is. It is,
Yeah.
and everybody keeps telling me like, "You better enjoy these years you have to yourself," because everybody's like, "When are you gonna get married? When are you gonna blah blah blah?" And I'm just like, "I'm not rushing it, but you are, and I don't really know why." But everybody's like, my married friends are like, "Please enjoy this time. This is your time, because once you get married or once you have kids, you'll be wishing you could take a bubble bath by yourself, let alone use the bathroom." And I'm just like, I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah, I don't I'm, it's like I spent my whole life desperate to be in a relationship. And,
Agree.
and I love the relationship that I'm in right now, and I'll be sad, a normal sad when
Yes.
or if it ends. But
Mm-hmm.
I I'm also like I'm okay. I'm not,
Yeah.
there's that piece of me that never felt worthy unless I was in a relationship. And I
Mm.
haven't tested it because I feel worthy now.
Yeah.
But I've been in a relationship. And so, if like I don't ever want to test it, but there's a little part of me that I'm like, I want to see how I react if this ever ends. I'm not going to do that, but
But I get what you're saying. Like, I don't know if you listen to Adele, but I'm sure you know who Adele is.
Mhm.
And she did this interview with Oprah, and she was saying, "This is my first time after her divorce and everything. She started dating the basketball player, and she said, this is the first time I've ever been in a relationship and not and felt like I have all of me. I'm whole. I have everything that I need right here, and he's just or the relationship is just additional. Like she's like, I don't need him, but I'm with him. Like he compliments me, I compliment him, but whether he's with me or not, I'm okay." In so many
Mhm.
words, I paraphrase that, but I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, that is something to be said about where your self-esteem is and where your confidence is and how you feel about yourself, how you carry yourself
Mhm.
when you're not in a relationship. I'm
Yeah.
glad you
And
said that.
that's where the pit of despair came from, because I mean, I was depressed after both relationships ending, and I was desperate to get into the next one.
Mhm.
And it was it was because I didn't feel complete by myself. I didn't feel whole on my own. I felt like I was half of a person looking for my soulmate,
Another
and really, like, I found my soulmate, but I'm my soul is complete, and so is his, and we come together and create, like, what is it called in science, like a nucleus, like we just like
yes.
bind, right? But on
Yes.
our own, like we're oxygen and helium, and my
Yes.
son's oxygen too, so we're H2O, right?
Yes. Yes. I love it.
And we
I
create
love
water.
it.
Yeah. So,
Yes, well, I would love to say thank you so much, Alicia, for coming on the show and talking about your story of resilience, but also just sharing all the things, like all the good news. I know there is a reason why I kind of felt like we were all over the place, but I was like, there's a methods to the Lord's madness. There is. And somebody needed to hear what we talked about today,
mhm,
regardless. So I was like, everything isn't always going to be perfect, but I think there's perfection in the chaos. So I thank you for
yeah.
being chaotic with me today. We shook something up.
I love the natural flow of conversations, and if you enjoyed this podcast episode with me and somebody else talking to me, I have a podcast called Imperfect Momming, and yes. And so it's specifically for moms who just want to grow and listen to the stories of other moms. So not to steal any
Yes.
of your listeners, but
No.
you know, I think that it's good for people to know that there is a podcast out there for moms and in personal
Yes.
development. Yeah. And it's better
Yes.
parenting through self-healing. Like, it starts with our own healing, and we can parent better when we are whole and complete on our own.
Yes, and I love that. And I will definitely be subscribing. And I encourage all of you who are listening to please go check out the podcast. If you know a new mom or somebody that's going to be a new mom, or maybe you yourself are a new mom, please go check it
Mhm.
out and support it. I think that you'll get a lot from it. Oh man, I loved having you on the show. I
Me
really
too. Love
did.
being
And
here.
I mean, even if you want me on your show later on down the line, I don't have any kiddos. But if you want to come back on my show, you can, and we can
Hmm.
definitely talk because there's so many which ways this conversation could have went. But for the sake of time,
Right? We can have at
I
least
will
a part two.
comment. Yes, a part two.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you, love, so much. Would you mind sharing your Instagram handles and your website one more time?
Absolutely. So it's at Mom Support Coach on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and AlysiaLyons.com, AlysiaLyons.com.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Miss Alysia came on here and shined her light bright for all of us. And I hope that you go check her out and support her, even if you just want to give feedback of what your takeaways was from this episode. And I thank you all for listening as always. And I will see you again on the next episode. Thanks, guys.